been making our own compost now for a number of years and at a very low cost, both in terms of the compost bins themselves, which have cost next to nothing, and the composting materials, which have been completely free. Today I thought I'd share with you our 3 outdoor composting bins and talk about their cost and how we use them to create enough compost for our garden. Most of the materials used to make this compost bin were either free or repurposed. The front of the bin is made with 1x4 furring strips. Probably half of these were repurposed from an old compost bin, and half were purchased for this bin. The horizontal slats are held in place by the verticals. To empty the compost bin, you can loosen up one of the verticals and then remove the horizontal slats. The wood on this side of the bin came from a discarded pallet. The pallet itself was not in very good shape, but I was able to salvage enough of the wood and fasten it to this compost bin with deck screws. This side of the bin is truly unique. My wife used to make handmade soaps, and I used a repurposed soap cutting tray to construct this side of the bin. The top of the bin, like the front, is made from inexpensive 1x4 furring strips. And finally, the back of the bin is made from a discarded pallet. Between the deck screws and the furring strips, I'm guessing this compost bin cost $20 or less to build. In prior years, this was a traditional compost bin, but last fall when the compost cooled, I decided to populate the bin with some red wigglers. When the red wigglers survived the winter, I decided why not make this into an outdoor worm bin. Today I decided to add some more red wigglers to this bin, so I went down to the basement to grab some more red wigglers from a worm bin there. Worms aren't going to like a hot compost pile, so I made sure to check the temperature. It's currently 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is perfect for the worms. So I removed the few layers of cardboard I have that protect the worms from the sun and the rain, added some more food, and deposited the worms. All summer long I'll continue to add food scraps, yard waste, coffee grounds, and shredded paper to the bin to feed the worms. And hopefully by spring we'll have worm castings to add to the garden. Our second compost bin is a repurposed garbage bin that is provided at no cost by the city. Last fall I filled it full of autumn leaves and used those leaves this spring as mulch, but currently it's empty. In order to produce enough compost for our garden, we can't rely solely on material that's produced on site. So we collect yard waste from our neighbors and we rely on other free resources in the community. I'll be filling this compost bin with free wood chips from the city wood chip pile, yard waste, and free coffee grounds from Starbucks. Rather than collect the fresh wood chips that are in the front of the pile, I go around to the back and I dig deep, looking for wood chips that are already partially composted. This pile is really cooking. You can see the steam rising off of it. By allowing this large pile to do a lot of the composting for me, I'll end up with compost much sooner than if I'd collected fresh chips. This material will also make an excellent mulch. Once back to the house, I start filling the bin. I alternate between layers of wood chips and nitrogen-rich materials like yard waste and coffee grounds. I try to put roughly equal amounts of nitrogen-rich materials in the wood chips. And here come the coffee grounds. This is going to make some very rich compost. I top off the pile with some more wood chips, and I add some water to the pile. Overall, you want the pile to have the moisture of a wrung-out sponge. Given the design of the bin, it's difficult to turn the pile. So if it fails to heat up, what I'll do is I'll poke some holes into it with some rebar, which will allow oxygen into the pile and hopefully heat it up. Now that that bin is full, let's take a look at the third of my outdoor compost bins. This one isn't very pretty, but it gets the job done. It's made from branches from a tree, and it's screwed together with deck screws. I would guess that the total cost for this bin would be at most about $2. This bin has a lot of coarse material on top which will take a long time to break down, but down below there are leaves and grass clippings which should produce some nice compost by the fall. At that time I'll simply dig the finished compost out of the bottom of the bin where there's plenty of access, and any material that remains uncomposted I'll simply pile on top. Well, that in a nutshell is how I create all of my own compost and do it at a low cost. By keeping the cost of my compost bins down and relying on free resources, not only on site but in the community, I'm able to generate a whole lot of compost at a very low cost. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, remember, you can change the world 1 yard at a time.